Robert Vandermolen. He is a grad student in the Department of Mathematics. He's won outstanding teaching awards from both the mathematics department and the graduate school, and has spent the last year participating in the NSF-funded research experiment peer mentorship program as a mentor. He also received one of the graduate school, one of the CTE's first teaching graduate student grants for developing resources to be implemented into classes that can be applied across campus. So if y'all are going to continue as a graduate student and you know that you have really good ideas, know that those grants exist and we offer them once a year. So that might be something you're interested in. And you developed, with that grant, you developed software to analyze recorded lectures with some of the observation protocols of the peer mentorship program. So it was a great combination. So note that you have in front of you the calendar of events for the CTE as well as our social media card. At the end of the workshop, we'll ask you to complete the evaluation form and give us some feedback. But I'm not going to sit in because I don't want you guys to be afraid to say anything, because it's all graduate students and insights from an experienced graduate instructor. And for those of y'all on the front row, if you have, when you contribute, if you say anything, you can use the mic to do that.
So before I start, I assume a lot of you are first years that are trying to get your first year training taken care of, yeah? So when I was a young one, I participated in a lot of these programs. I observed way too many people teaching. And I made the mistake of first trying everything I saw. I would see someone do it well, and be like, oh, I should definitely do that. Whatever you learn, whatever you see, make it your own. You don't teach like someone else teaches. You are not someone else. You are yourself. And that should come through everything. So today I'm going to tell you about something. I'm going to tell you about what I call a cycle of reflection. Now, the cycle of reflection you should also make your own, and you should do it yourself. Should not just be, hey, look at this weird tall guy told me to do it, so I should do it. I know, I make it look so good, but all right. So, a cycle of reflection. Is everyone familiar with what reflection we mean when we say reflection when we teach? So, reflecting on your teaching practices is thinking back on what went well and what did not go well in your teaching. But I find that when I first started reflecting, and you'll have to write a reflection about this if you're in the first year thing, I found that reflection can get overwhelming, that I didn't know what to focus on, that I would just, all these thoughts would pop in my head. Are my students paying attention to me? Are they learning? Am I going too fast, apparently, is what I wrote. Are my students investigating? Am I going too slow? Am I encouraging student thinking? There's so much, you're going to learn so much from all these CTE programs. You're going to try to incorporate all of them, and it's just going to be overwhelming. So this cycle of reflection that I'm suggesting is a way of breaking down your reflection in a more manageable way. And I call it the IPRA. So what is the cycle of reflection? Well, first you teach. Check. Then you identify good teaching practices that you've seen in your observations, learned as a student, learned from one of these programs. Then prioritize, so IP, then prioritize what you should worry about, because we're all very busy. Then reflect on what you prioritized. Then the most important is adjust your classroom to help change what you reflected on. And then you start all over again. And that is the reflection cycle. All right, so let's dig into these steps. Step one is identify. So we want to identify good teaching practices so that we know where to look in our classes. So what I'd like you to do, everyone has note cards in front of you. I first, for y'all, broken down the classroom into 4 pieces. There's the basic organization and management side. There's the student side of your classroom. There are students in your classroom. There's the teaching side, what you do, and then there's the goals of the lesson. Now on a note card, I'd like you to pick one of these columns and write something that you could observe from yourself in your classroom that would happen in this column. So if you're stuck, how about, let's look at this one. Here's two that could get you to start thinking. With some basic organization or management. Well, verbal articulate, and clear presented work. How clearly did you speak? And how clearly did you present the work you're trying to present? Was it slides? Were there some things written too small that no one could see? By the way, this is a citation. I took this from my experience as a peer mentor. Student side, we could think about did the student critically assess? Were they involved in communication, ideas or concepts? Did your questions encourage them to think? And also something that I find very important is, did you leave enough wait time? All right. How about after you finish writing one down, you talk to the people at your table and discuss the ones you wrote down. Well, that's step one, is identify. Step number two is going to be prioritize. Now that you've identified what to look for, so now you don't have a bunch of thoughts just running through your head. You have a clear plan. Now you should prioritize which thing to look at. So together, let's do the example of something from the student side. This is one I chose, was students were involved in communication to others. This could mean communication to the teacher. But let's focus on communication peer-to-peer. So what I like to do is think of the last class you taught, or if you have not yet had the opportunity to teach a class, the last class you were in. And see how you would rank these. So the priority scale that I suggest should be a sliding scale. You have the red side of the scale, and this means, ooh, I should take time thinking about this. This is something I should address right away in my class. The opposite side, the green side, is that's something that you feel like you're doing great and don't need to really improve. And somewhere in the middle is place for improvement. It should be worth your time to think about it, but it's not as high of a priority as something that you should address. Because we're all busy graduate students and whatever. So let's try to use our time wisely. So now on your note card, I would like you to write and also discuss with the people at your table, what would a classroom look like if you think you should address this thing? Students were involved in communication to others peer-to-peer. What would a classroom look like where there was bad communication between peer-to-peer? Does that mean no communication peer-to-peer? So I heard some good suggestions out there. So the worst case scenario I could think of was if no one was talking at all. I teach math, so this happens a lot. No one wants to talk in my courses. So how about we do the same thing with could improve? So it's okay. To share some of the examples I heard is some people aren't afraid of people not talking. They're afraid of people arguing in class. So what would be put here? Mild arguments? Only 2 people argued and the rest of the people debated? Only 1 fist fight breaks out instead of 5? No one cursed, but they still yelled? I mean.
Well, it could be they argued about something related to the lesson, but it didn't involve your learning goals, or so it wasn't helpful for you, maybe it was for them.
It's a great example, thank you. All right, let's move on. This is something I wrote, that most of the lecture was directed by the teacher, and there was little opportunities for people to speak. And in a lot of classes that I've observed, be it faculty, be it other graduate students, that they get too wrapped up in the material and don't give the students enough time to talk. They don't give room in their classroom for the actual people that are learning, you might not have this problem. Again, I teach math. I observe math graduate students teach. All they do is sit up there and talk, and sometimes write on the board. So, okay. And what would a great job be? I think that would be if everyone was engaged in the lesson. So just to remind us, oh, no. Okay, that's step 2. Step 3, what letter are we on? Reflect. All right, so take the last class you taught or in and reflect on the same thing. Students were involved in communications with others, peer-to-peer communication. So what does peer communication accomplish in your classroom? What's the purpose of it? I think this speaks to one of the comments that were made. And how can I give students more opportunities is the first 2 that come to my mind to start off the reflection process. Let's look at step 4. Now it's time to adjust from what we just reflected on. So you just had some great discussion on what peer communication would communicate and how you could give students more opportunities. In the back, we had a good discussion on how would you be able to tell if your opportunities were being used to enhance student learning. How could you tell if your students were getting things out of peer communication? But now, the hardest part of this step of this process is to figure out how to adjust your classroom that will work with the reflection process. So one suggestion is you can design activities that increase communication. You can design your questions so that they're not yes or no, so that they also increase participation. Oops. All right, so just to remind y'all of the cycle, you're never done. You're always thinking, you're always adjusting. There is no best way to teach. There is no one size fits every classroom. Every student's different, every classroom's different. Use the tools you talked about, use the tools you learn in these CTE programs to help you identify, prioritize, reflect, and then adjust. So before I let y'all go, let's look at one more example. This one's on the teaching side. My question is, did the teacher provide sufficient wait time? What's wait time? Well, say you wanted to pose a question in class, or say you want to just introduce a new topic. You should give time for what you just said to sink in for every student. They're writing in their notes. They're listening to you talk. Every word you say doesn't immediately trigger an idea in their head. So something you should address immediately for wait time is if any questions asked by the teacher were rhetorical and then there's no expectation of a response from the student. Could improve. Great job. But the real question is, how can you tell how much wait time you're giving? Sometimes you're sitting in front of a classroom and you're waiting after you ask a question. And it feels like you're waiting for 20 hours. And really it's been about 2 seconds. And then the student looks up from their notes and you're already moving on. They're like, wow, why is the teacher going so fast? So, after you heard in one of the first in my introduction, I actually developed a program that will do this for you. It's called STAR, Speech to Text Analytic Resource. Sorry for the tiny advert. So it's available right now only on GitHub for you to download. Eventually, it will be available through the Center for Teaching Excellence website, where there are 2 versions. There's both what's called Python and the easiest version to use, which is made with Java. To learn how to use it, I've also written up a nice little blog so that you don't have to be intimidated by its use. And just for you to know, there's little cartoons to walk you through it. So you should definitely all try it out. And this is WordPress. Great question. It's algebraiccafe.wordpress.com. What is that? Because I do algebra. Maybe you didn't know that you could spend your whole life only studying algebra. You can. It's actually really awesome. Yeah, well, dang, I lost my train of thought. But thank you for making me say that.
What does STAR do?
There we go. That's what I was going to say. Oh, what does this program do? So you can either record your lecture via your phone, or you can video. This takes in audio and video, or video. And what it will do is it will analyze your lecture and spit out how much wait time you've given. It will also spit out how much of another analytic, which is called clarification pauses. So, step 1, you record your lecture, and you can use Python. It can be a .flv, .wave, .mp3, .mp4. Try to make it quite easy to use, i.e. everything your phone makes. All right? And then you plug it into the, you could browse like every other program you've ever used. And then you just click Find Times, and what it will kick out is the average amount of wait time you've given. So, so you know how much on average, and it'll tell you how many times per class you gave it. So maybe you gave 1 chance for wait time, and it was 20 minutes. You also don't want that, right? So it tells you the average and how many you give, how many times you did it in class. It also tells you the average time for clarification pauses. Clarification pauses is when you introduce a new concept and you pause to see if anybody needs clarification on what you just said. And yeah, how it works and how to use it is all explained in this blog. I will not explain it now. But there's another cool thing about it is you can train it to understand how you speak. So its default model is, not the best for every dialect or every accent, but you can train it. And what I really like about it is you can train any words. You can train words that don't exist. And those are actually the words I suggest you use. Essentially what you can do is, in your lecture, choose a word that starts the timer, and it times how long silence from the word that you use to trigger it is, and then stops the next time you hear someone talk. So it's kind of like an automatic stopwatch clicker. And you can train it to understand any word that you could say, even not real words, like gobbledygook. And every time you say gobbledygook, it will start timing how long silence is going to happen after that. And there's a little bit of leeway. You say gobbledygook, you can say some more stuff. And then it looks for the next time silence happens. All right. Well, thank you all for your time. Appreciate it. Hope you got something out of it.